Miami fans have mixed feelings about this season, the direction of the team's future, but have they taken the idea of Heat culture for granted? Plus, Pat Riley wonders what would have been had LeBron James stayed with the team in 2014. But Wes, what do you think would have happened?
I think LeBron would have gotten his statue outside of the Miami Heat's arena one day.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Jam-packed show for you today. We're going to talk about Pat Riley, wondering about what could have been had LeBron stayed in 2014. We're also going to look ahead to tonight's game in Milwaukee. But first, David, I want to read you this tweet from our friend Anthony Irwin, who used to be the host of Locked On Lakers, now doing his own thing over there. He posted this during the Lakers' loss to the Celtics on Sunday night. Same day, by the way, that the Lakers unveiled Pat Riley's statue. We talked about that in our bonus episode on Monday. Here's the tweet from Anthony. I've typed out and deleted a few tweets, but all I'll say is that this Lakers team completely lacks culture, and it's on crystal clear display playing against Boston's discipline. Such a disappointing performance so far, end quote. This got Lakers fans stirred up a little bit, as Anthony is prone to do, but it got me thinking, David, culture, the idea that a Lakers fan would go so far as to tweet, the problem with this team is culture. This is a Lakers team with Luka Doncic, LeBron. You got Luka just lands in your lap for free. You have LeBron. You've got the Lakers allure. You've got the history. You know, you got Austin Reeves there. There's talent there. What they're missing is culture. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, do Heat fans take culture for granted? Because it does feel like basically post-2023, that run, the idea of culture has become a little bit more punchline than rallying cry in Miami locally.
I think it goes back even further than that. I think the idea of Heat culture being more than anything more than just a marketing slogan has been going on for quite some time now. And it did feel like there was a point there, and I will say even before 2023, and you and I did talk about it on shows where it was just felt like we were being constantly hit over the head, like a reminder over and over again. We've got culture. You don't. We've got culture. We have a culture that exists, etc. And I think fans do get a little turned off by it. But I think that culture is both an idea that goes deeper and more superficial than a lot of people kind of look at it. The idea has become synonymous with the slogan that goes even further, that meanest, toughest, hardest working, etc. And that has been a part of what Pat Riley brought to this team in 1995. As I talked about in the previous episode, looking at his legacy, he imbued it with an idea of culture that didn't exist before. It gave it a direction, a purpose that didn't exist prior to his joining the organization. And I think that's a through line has been there for the past 30 years. And a lot of people kind of tend to overlook that. At the same time, you're kind of overlooking the idea of accountability. And I think it's something that a lot of players have recognized, is that when you join this team, and it's not to say other teams don't have it, but I think because of the stability of this front office, it's a lot easier, ironically enough, to create this sense of accountability because they know what this team is about. They have an idea of what this team should accomplish on a yearly basis, and whether it amounts to that or not, they at least know we want to keep winning. For all the griping about, oh, why don't we tank, et cetera, and whether it's a good strategy or it's not, that's not the debate. This team isn't going to tank. They never will. They never have, really. And as such, I think what gets overlooked is this, again, idea that they want to keep winning at all costs. And that means something. You know, both you and I have covered this league for a while, and we've been up close with teams that didn't have that culture. I won't go so far as to say the Lakers don't have it, but I I've been around the Magic team when I was covering the teams in Orlando, and I know what it was like for a team to be floundering all the time, looking from one direction to the other, not knowing how you were defined, whether it was because you didn't have a consistent front office, or you didn't know what was going to happen with the sale of a team, or you didn't know who was going to be, filling out the roster from one to the next, who's your star player. And you had tanked and gone through this process of drafting players and wind up not getting the pick that you wanted. You didn't get that clear superstar. And that eats away at a player because you just never know. I won't go so far as to say that being consistently mediocre is far better, but at least there's a comfort in knowing that you're going to be good enough. Maybe that's not what fans want to hear, but I do think it matters because you're always going to try, and knowing that you do your best with what you've got. It hasn't really worked out that way because you're missing superstar talent and all the other things that come with being a true title contender. But I think it makes a lot of difference for this organization to know that they have a direction. Even Bam Adebayo a couple seasons in the offseason, knowing that, speaking that changes were going to come, et cetera, that's an understanding of this team, is that you've got a limited amount of time with the players on this roster that you want to make good. You want to be able to make the most of that time. And if not, you're not going to be part of this team for much longer. And so I think that makes a difference. It trickles down to lots of different aspects of the organization, whether it's the consistency, the family environment, the idea of, we recognize our past and we build it up and we talk about it frequently, where we acknowledge a player's individual impact and how they make a difference in this organization. All these things matter. All that is part of the culture. And we've seen other teams around the league that they just don't even have that sense of history. They don't have a sense of anything. It's just, well, we're kind of go and show up in a 9-to-5 job.
Yep.
It's far from a 9-to-5 job. And so they don't really feel connected to anything. When you're part of this team, you feel it. And we see this with longtime veterans that joined this group. And I don't think they're just talking it up just for the sake. I remember, and I've said this before, so I apologize for the long kind of rant here, but I remember talking to Solomon Hill when he first joined the team. And I know that's kind of a blast from the past. And Solomon was, as many people remember, a journeyman. He really had a lasting impact in the NBA or anything like that. But he had just been with the team for a few short weeks. And all he could talk about was how he saw that culture everywhere, like that he felt it and he knew it was a real part of something. And that I think that matters a lot, that you have an organization like Miami with such a stellar reputation around the league, and that it really does matter to these players, is something that a lot of fans just don't understand, because we're kind of in this short-sighted world of, we have to make improvements. We've got to do something. What are we doing? What's the purpose? Why don't we get that superstar player? Why don't we just blow it up? It's like, those things have long-lasting scars that a lot of fans don't recognize, and it's hard to get out of. It really is. For a lot of organizations, you build those losing habits, you can't get out of them. And I mean, you have to point to teams like Sacramento as one of them. Even Orlando, for all their promise and everything they have, I think they're still recovering for those years of being a really, really bad team, and they have very little purpose in some ways. So I think fans have tended to overlook what culture means and how much it defines this organization and how it's made such a positive impact on everybody who's played here.
It's one of those things that you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I do think it's one of those things that that is taken for granted. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the capital C culture with the jerseys and the trademarks and the marketing and all that stuff. It go too far. It has. It went too far. I'm willing to say it. It went too far. But by definition, every workplace has a workplace culture, right? When we talk about Miami's culture with a capital C, we mean it in a good way. But there are some teams that have a bad one, right? Like you mentioned some of those teams. They all have a culture. It's facilitating and nurturing and growing a good one, a strong one that makes a difference. And you have to do things to make that happen. You're talking about the history of the organization. You use the word consistency a few times. I think that's the key word there. Now, you look at a Lakers roster that around LeBron, since he got there, has basically been under construction the entire time. Players coming in and out, different role players, It's really hard, even with the star player there, to build a culture when guys are leaving all the time. And that's what the Heat will tell you in the offseason, the trade deadline, when they bring back a Drew Smith or they re-sign their own players so they don't make a trade for the sake of making a trade, they'll tell you, hey, this is what we value. This is how we build the culture. I remember sitting at a car dealership years ago, and this woman next to me, I was leasing a car, and this woman next to me was negotiating her lease, and she was demanding a price on a Jeep. And she was like, I want this price, and I want this car at this price, and I know you're going to give it to me because you have to get rid of this car. And the salesman said, look, I'm willing to negotiate with you, but it's not enough. You're asking for too much. Like, we can't give you the car at that price. It's crazy. She's like, and she stormed out of the dealership. And that reminds me a lot of some Heat fans who look at culture and say, I want culture. I want all of this stuff. I want to have it, but I don't want to have to pay the price for it. And sometimes that price is hanging on to players for a little too long. That price is not tanking. That price is all these things. You don't get to have the culture without paying something for it. And so if you want to say, I don't want culture, I'd rather tank, okay, that's your prerogative. And there's basketball reasons to have that argument. But if you want culture, it comes at the cost of either doing or not doing some other things. And if you're a Heat fan, that's the part that I think gets taken for granted a lot, is this idea that culture it exists in perpetuity and that it's just here. And this idea that, well, if the culture was so strong, then you would just do X, Y, and Z. No, the culture is strong because they don't tank, because they don't bring in certain players, because of all these things. And so I do think that it's taken for granted in a way that doesn't mean like, hey, you go out and buy that culture jersey. Don't roll your eyes every time it gets brought up by the organization. Just taken for granted in the fact that it could go away in an instant with a couple of wrong decisions. It's not something that just exists in perpetuity. And that's the part where I do think it is taken for granted a little bit. Meanwhile, we got more news out of this Pat Riley statue unveiling. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Riley, talking about what could have been had LeBron James stayed in Miami in 2014. He used the word dynasty. We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, whether it's the skills, experience, or location you need. So you're not just hoping the right the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I'll be talking to you, companies like yours will have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is the job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job to the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. You just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen. You might have heard us mention on the show, we recently launched a new subscription program called the Everydayer Club. That includes ad-free shows, access to a group chat for Heat fans on Discord, and now an all-new, all-access tier that's part of that program that includes even more. If you sign up, you're going to get all of the perks that I just mentioned, plus the ability to text me and David directly, submit questions for post-game shows, and subscriber-exclusive episodes of Locked On Heat. Daily Show is not going anywhere. It's always going to be free, but if you're looking for another way to help support us here, we'd love for you to check this out. If you're interested in being part of the Cookie Gang and joining any part of the Everydayer Club, tap the link in the show notes or head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to learn more. I want to talk a little bit more about what Pat Riley had to say during his statue unveiling on Sunday, and he talked specifically about LeBron James and the Big Three. LeBron obviously part of the Lakers now, and that's probably a reason why it was brought up. And Riley said, quote, I thought getting the Big Three, Dwayne, Chris Bosh, and especially LeBron, that we had finally put together what I thought could become a dynasty. It was 4 trips to the finals in a row, 2 world championships. It was an incredible run. And as a coach and somebody who really thought about how to build that particular team and had built it, I saw something that could have lasted 8 to 10 years. The business in the NBA is the business in the NBA. Players have opportunity to go somewhere else, and he went to Cleveland, and he won a title up there. So I wish him nothing but the best. But I'm going to be selfish here and say I wish I had him for another 6 or 8 years. That would have been great, but we'll never know, will we? End quote. Something that could have lasted 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
That to me is interesting. But before we do the what if part of it, he also said that it was a dynasty, that he would have qualified those 4 years as a dynasty. David, would you consider it a dynasty?
No, I don't. I don't think it was dynastic. I think you need to have a little bit more of a shelf life than just 4 years. It was a real powerful team that I think changed the whole landscape of the NBA during its 4 years. It just, even in terms of just media and how a team was covered and the things, the emotions that group elicited around the league. There was a sense of finality around the league in 2010 when LeBron James joined the group. And I think 29 other teams really felt, oh, that's it. It's over. Like the idea of the process and everything else and kind of leaning into tanking, and not that it didn't happen before, but just the structure of it was a byproduct of the formation of Miami's Big Three, because there was this idea that's like, okay, we're done. In the Eastern Conference, nobody else is going to represent but Miami. And there was a feeling in 2010 that they were going to be together for a while. And so I think they would have had a stranglehold on the Eastern Conference the way that LeBron did individually, like to carry the team in Miami to 4 years in the NBA Finals and then carry Cleveland to the finals for another 4 years. Like that would have been him in Miami, regardless of whatever group was around, because he was that good an individual player. Regardless of what would have happened with Dwayne or Chris Bosh or anybody else in this roster, they probably would have been good enough to get to the NBA Finals for 8 consecutive seasons. And that was enough for teams around the Eastern Conference in particular to go, well, we don't have much of a chance, and we might as well just try to find something different in order to make it work. So I don't know that a dynasty is the right word. I'm not sure that there is one because they really were a game changer, but it was just too short a time for me to call it a dynasty.
I'm going to go ahead and say it was. I do think that there was a time where 4 years wasn't enough, right? You think about the Celtics, the Lakers, the Bulls, and during their runs, like they dominated the league for almost a decade, right? Like way more than 4 years. I just don't know that that's true anymore based on the way the league is, what player movement has done to the NBA, how short the shelf life for any team is, dynastic or not, right? We're, 3 years removed from the Beam team in Sacramento. That team is completely gone, right? Like, and that happens all the time. Just the way that these teams get cycled through. I don't know that you can realistically look at anything and say anything will last more than 4 years. So what? We're just never going to have a dynasty again? No, I think we just have to alter the definition for what the modern NBA is. The Warriors dynasty was 4 years, 2015 and 2019. You want to count 2022? Maybe that to me is sort of like a lingering over there championship, not really part of the dynasty to me. But that was enough for the dynasty. Like I'll say that even before they won in 2022, we were already calling it a dynasty, right? That Warriors run.
That's fair.
Same amount of time as the Heat run. And I'll say this. There was nothing anybody talked about more for those 4 years, from 2010 to 2014, than the Miami Heat and LeBron James. The amount of airspace that they just soaked up and sponged up, that to me is enough, right? Like it's the only thing anybody ever thought about in the NBA was the Miami Heat for 4 straight years. Like that to me was a dynasty. They were so dominant. To your point, David, they were just so dominant as a force, as an entity, that it felt like a moment. It felt like Beatlemania. That's why they got the Heatles. And that to me, I'll qualify it as a dynasty for these days. In terms of 8 to 10 years and the what could have been, LeBron James was even asked about this on Sunday. He said, quote, "I never said I'm going to be there for 4 years and decide to go somewhere else. That's just how the cards were played. But yeah, it's human nature to look back and say what could have been. But that's part of life. I thought the 4 years that we had were great. Obviously, we were able to pick up 2 championships. We lost 2 of them, unfortunately. But a lot of great memories, a lot of great time there. It would have been interesting to see what could have happened," end quote. First time we've really heard LeBron kind of look back on it in that way in terms of the what if of it all.
Yeah. Looking back fondly at his college years, right? His former.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting to think about what could have happened, David, especially if it had lasted 8 to 10 years.
I mean, I think in 2015, they probably would have been good enough to make another run to the NBA Finals. Like I know you only got half a season of Chris Bosh, or a little bit over than half, but Dwayne was still good enough to carry the team to a third seed, and we got his epic performance against. No, that wasn't 2015. That was 2016. My apologies. Like 2 years later, we got Dwayne. Leading the team, the purple shirt guy, the Charlotte Hornets, etc. But 2015, they made the trade for Goran Dragic.
Toronto in the second round. We were very close to seeing LeBron James in the conference finals.
Yep. I think they would have. I think they would have been good enough. Like, do they make the trade for Goran Dragic?
That's an interesting part, right?
Would that have been enough there? I mean, like, what did they trade for Goran? Danny Granger.
Yeah, contracts. A bunch of guys that they signed in the wake of LeBron leaving, but guys that they thought LeBron were going to be playing with. Remember, like they signed Danny Green thinking that LeBron.
So they could have had a big four in theory.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been enough. And would the trio of Dwayne, Goran, and LeBron James have been enough to get to the NBA Finals in 2015? I think so.
Assuming that Bosh still gets the blood clots and everything eventually, and I mean. Maybe, right? Like they'd still have to. The problem is with this is that the development program was born out of losing LeBron. And I don't know that Miami becomes the development factory that they become and get guys like Hassan Whiteside and Derrick Jones Jr. those years and stuff like that, if not for LeBron James leaving. Maybe they do. Maybe that's something that they were already working on and planning for or whatever. But they were a team that was mostly just like, we'll take your Greg Odens and your Rashard Lewis's, and we'll kind of take those guys and fill out the bench with those guys.
Reclamation projects. That's what they were.
Reclamation projects, more than development projects. And so I think for them to really compete for another 8 to 10 years, it would have taken a Dragic type deal, whether it was Dragic or somebody. They would have had to make a big move. I think they would have made that big move. I think Pat Riley's been on the record of saying like we were always making big moves with LeBron. So I don't doubt that it would have looked certainly a lot different, right, in terms of all these things. But I think they would have competed. And the main point, you already made it. LeBron was so freaking good those years in Cleveland when he went back. If you just gave him a good player next to him, all you needed was one of Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving, and he was making it back to the NBA Finals. If you gave him Dragic, if you gave him half a good year of Chris Bosh or Dwayne Wade, he was so good those years that he's making the finals. And then once you're in the finals, who knows? The Warriors obviously become a thing in 2015. They take off. Is it the same sort of battles? Probably a little bit different. I don't know. Does Kevin Durant ever join the Warriors in 2016 if LeBron ever... I think these are all open questions, right? I think LeBron beating the Warriors in 2015 that forced Kevin Durant or allowed Kevin Durant the window to go join the Warriors for 2016. I think LeBron cost himself a couple of championships by winning it in 2015. Right? Because if they lose in 2015 to the Warriors, then Kevin Durant can't go there. And now the path to maybe multiple championships in Cleveland, I think, is way more open for LeBron James. So who knows how it would have changed. But I do think that he'd at least get one more ring, and they're in the finals at least a couple more times if LeBron doesn't leave in 2014. Let's talk about tonight's game, though. Milwaukee Bucks, Miami Heat. We're going to preview that after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. And whether or not Miami's in the finals or not, that's an experience you just can't pass up. There's nothing quite like it. You're watching the two best teams in the league fight, and just the buzz, the excitement, the energy that comes with it is something that you can't capture and you'll never be able to replicate. And look, with the World Cup coming to town and all the different emotions caught up in those kind of sporting events that are on the global stage, the NBA Finals is right there among them. And it's just something that you have to experience. I've been lucky enough to cover it in person. So if you, Wes, and there's nothing, if you have the opportunity and FanDuel is giving it to you, you've got to take advantage. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, it's the perfect time to lock in. And this time of year is great for doing that because every game has an extra meaning. Every pick that you make has an extra layer of excitement tied into it as these games come down to the stretch. And right now, you can not only can your pick cash in, but can also send you to the finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Locked On Heat. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Support the show by subscribing and liking on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. David, before we get to tonight's game against the Bucks, you didn't get a chance to sort of respond to the LeBron what-ifs of it all there. Any lingering thoughts on that before we move on?
It just would have been interesting to see. I think it would have been great to kind of have him be with this one team for a number of years and to see all the different changes and kind of, again, tying to the idea of culture in the first segment, a lot more feeling of permanence. Like, I think it would have done such a different thing in terms of like how he would have been viewed by Heat fans to have stuck around and be a part of this organization for another 5-6 years as it was intended for him to be. And to see him go through all these different permutations, to see him kind of mature and see his game change and to be the elder spokesman of the league. I mean, like, he won a finals with the Lakers in 2020. That could have been in Miami just as easily. Who knows? Does Jimmy Butler even
So
join
he
this
wins
team?
in 2015. He wins one with Cleveland, and he wins one.
Right.
So he's won 2 championships since he left Miami. Does he match that if he stays in Miami?
I think so. I think he would have at least matched the number of opportunities. Like, he went to the finals every year after that, and I think he would have been able to do the same thing. Like, do the Toronto Raptors, do they get their title in 2020 and not 2019?
In 2019? If that was the year LeBron went west, right? So he left the East open. I don't think so, right? I think the Heat would have had to take a gap year somewhere in there. And when I say gap year, I don't mean like tank or something, but they would have missed the finals, right?
Well, Dwayne retired in 2019.
Yeah,
right? So,
something like that. That probably right around there. So maybe there's another team that sneaks in there. But I think, 2 doesn't seem like a we forget how good that guy was. The lift would not have been very much for this front office to get LeBron a chance at 2 more rings. Very interesting. And then him being the new Dwayne Wade, right? Like, Dwayne would have passed the baton to LeBron as the Heat lifer. It would have been LeBron and Udonis Haslem for a number of years. And then UD retires, and LeBron's still here, still hanging out. Now, he probably would have, I would imagine nothing was going to keep LeBron from Cleveland forever. And my assumption is he would have ended up going back to the Cavs at some point. Maybe it would have been, just for a last retirement tour or something like that. But the idea of really being a Heat lifer, that to me is very interesting. The Heat play the Bucks tonight. They might be without Davion Mitchell and Nikola Jovic. Mitchell was sick, and Jovic had a lower back injury that held both of those guys out for practice on Monday. TBD on whether or not they're going to make the trip to Milwaukee, but Jovic wasn't part of the rotation, so it's not a material thing for the Heat in this game. And then for Davion, he missed Saturday's game in Memphis. Kasparis Jakubonis started in his place. I figured he'd probably get the start again if Davion's forced to miss a second straight game. But in terms of the matchup, David, beyond just the injury part of it, no Giannis for the Bucks is a very important thing here. But what are you watching for in this game?
Kind of a carryover from the first 2 games. Like, I think we talked about it and looking at the weekend recap and the fact that you're playing subpar teams. And of course, the Bucks, not necessarily a great team, but those have been trap games for Miami in the past over the course of this season. And can they continue to show what they did over the weekend? Will they still have that kind of same sense of energy and purpose and everything else like that, and just not play with your food, so to speak? I think this Bucks team, they beat Miami before. Can Miami figure it out and find a way to win 4 in a row now? That would be something they haven't accomplished for quite some time. So that's really what I'm looking for as far as just a bigger picture. As far as an individual matchup is concerned, I'm not overly concerned. It doesn't really matter who's on the other side of the ball. It's just mostly about what you can do on Miami's side of things, and to be able to get the best balance, best performance, to see how Tyler looks back after an inefficient game on Saturday. Is he back? Is he healthy? Can he find a more comfortable rhythm? All these different things I think are important factors to look at in terms of what Tuesday's game should show.
Yeah, Milwaukee stinks. They're bottom 10 in offensive rating. They're bottom 10 in defensive rating. This is, to your point, a continuation of what the weekend is. The Heat have an easy schedule coming out of the break. We talked about it a bunch. This is part of it. They play a bunch of stinky teams in a row. Milwaukee is as stinky as any of these teams have been, and maybe other than Memphis that have,
they've won 6 out of 8. Including
Milwaukee,
2 against them.
Yeah, they brought in Cam Thomas. He's been kind of nice for them off the bench. They've got AJ Green, who's a guy that can get hot from 3-point range and kill you. The Heat win this game as long as they control the controllables. Rebound the ball, crisp closeouts, limit your own turnovers. You do those things, and the Heat should win. And as long as you don't just go completely cold from 3-point range and from shooting, the Heat should win this game. This should absolutely be a win for the Heat. We'll be here to recap it for you all. But for now, thanks for tuning in to Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Join the Cookie Gang and get Locked On Heat ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to join the club.